So we're going to be teaching Sara science. Welcome.
Welcome. I'm Sarah. I'm being taught science.
I'm Rachel. I'm going to attempt to teach Sara science. So what do we have today?
What do we have today?
Blood types and blood.
Ew.
Blood in general.
Actually, I really like blood, so that's fine.
Oh, you're okay with it?
I feel like I could take people's blood and be fine with it.
Yeah. You had a big problem with needles and all that good stuff.
I did, but then I got a million tattoos, so now I'm okay.
You're over it?
A little bit.
Okay.
And I've just had a lot of blood drawn. I can find my own vein for them. That's kind of how I have to do it because you can't see my veins. So I poke my arm and show them where to go.
Perfect.
What blood type am I?
Do you know your blood type?
I think it's B positive.
Yeah.
Because I'm positive and you should be positive.
Yes, you're a very cheery person. I don't think that's how blood types work.
You're not.
Nope. So let's jump right in. What do you know about blood types?
I know that there are blood types.
Okay. And what else do you know about blood in general?
A, B, positive, negative.
Those are types.
Oh. What, like that it can coagulate?
Okay, that's a good one.
Is that a thing?
That's totally a thing.
Okay. And that it's red.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
No? All right, we have a lot to cover. So you started off with blood types. Is perfect.
Yeah.
There are 4 main different types of blood. These are passed down by your parents. You have different genes that these actually respond to, or how should I say, they correlate to markers on your blood cells themselves. So you have markers that identify who you are.
Do my blood cells have names?
Yes, that's the A, the B, or the O. In this case, O doesn't actually have a marker. So it's
Could I change it to Joe, Steve, Mike?
whatever you want.
Cool.
I don't know why they're guys, but your call.
I don't either. We're just gonna skip right over that.
Okay.
Okay.
So the A, B, and O are what's going to identify your cells as, who they are. Then you have this thing called the rhesus factor, which you can either...
Reese's?
Nope, like rhesus monkey.
Oh, not the candy.
Not the candy.
I do like the candy.
But the rhesus factor is going to be... Like monkeys. Is going to be positive or negative. And that's a really important factor as well when you talk about blood transfusions or when a woman's pregnant. So we'll go back to the main types of blood, what's going to identify your red cells, the A, the B, or the O. You can have, you always have 2, what's called alleles, which is 2 of those letters. So you said you're B positive?
I believe so.
Since our parents are AB.
Should we probably tell people that we are sisters?
Oh, that's a good point. So we're related.
I am the older yet slightly dumber sister, so I need to be taught science. I'm very capable of admitting that, and that's fine.
Okay.
Well,
I'm
tell them.
I'm the younger sister.
Yeah, where did you go to school? And what did you go to school for? Just so this makes a little more sense.
So I went to St. Anselm College for biochemistry. I cannot technically be called a scientist, but I love science and I like to share it with people, whether they like it or not sometimes. But luckily, in this case, you like science.
So I like science more now than I did before. I didn't really pay attention in school. I didn't really go to school for science. I went for psychology. Still can't tell you much about that. Now I do something completely different. So I'm ready to learn science.
Excellent. So our parents are O and AB. That means that our dad can give either an A or a B, and our mom can give an O only to our blood types. So if you're B, that means that you're
Positive.
B positive. You're O and B together. Now, since the O is recessive and B is dominant, your B is what gets presented. My blood type is A positive, so I'm O and A. So my A is what gets presented.
Why don't they just call it OB and OA?
because the O sort of takes that back seat, there's no markers, there's no identifiers on the O cell that can disrupt within your body if you get O blood. So if you're given O blood, regardless of whether or not you have it, there's nothing on those O cells that say, I'm different. They're like mainstream people.
They're basic bitches.
They're basic bitches.
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah. They're very generic. But we love them because being unmarked, they're what's called the universal donor. So when anyone needs blood, they get type O blood.
So technically they're not basic bitches because they can help everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But they are. But they aren't.
Right.
Okay.
So what are the 4 basic blood types?
A positive, B positive, O, and there's a negative in there somewhere. AB positive, AB negative, AB.
Yes. So A, B, AB, and O.
Where does the negative and the positives come in?
You can have, those are separate from the A, O, and B.
Got it.
So you can have all of those in positives and all of those in negatives. Most people say there's 8 types, but I was just trying to simplify it.
Makes sense.
So in terms of the rhesus factor, like we were just talking about, whether you're positive or negative for it.
Still now I can all think of as just monkeys. That's all I'm thinking about is monkeys.
Well, we're at least closer than candy. So
okay.
we'll go with that. The rhesus factor is another part that wasn't really well known. When you can have issues with the maternal blood and fetal blood is when you have a fetus that has received the positive rhesus factor from the dad, but the mom is rhesus negative.
Does that happen often?
It happens occasionally.
And what do they do to fix it?
So what they have to do is treat the mother with like a it's like an immune suppressant. And the immune suppressant will prevent the body from attacking the fetal blood as foreign. This usually, from my basic science that I learned in school, this usually only happened on the second birth. So me, because if the first child was rhesus positive and the mother's rhesus negative, the first birth might have introduced that rhesus positive blood into the mother's body. That will develop antibodies against that rhesus positive blood, or just rhesus positive in general. That is called an antigen. So it's the flag.
I remember that word.
Yeah. So it's the flag that says, this is who I am. If the second birth then occurs in the same manner, you can have a reaction. Now the maternal body says, I know what that is, that's foreign, I need to attack it. You can have a lot of issues in that sense.
Is it weird that all I'm picturing are cells dressed up in like knight's gear and attacking things?
No, it's kind of how we got through science. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So that covers a lot of like the blood types and
I feel like I understand it slightly better.
Great.
You taught Sara science.
Well, so far so good. So do you know what blood is made up of? Like, what are the blood components?
It's not just blood.
Well, blood is a mixture of a bunch of stuff.
No, had no idea.
You didn't know that?
Nope.
You know what red blood cells are?
They're red.
Yeah, but okay, there's red blood. You know white blood cells?
They're white.
But they're both.
One happens when you have your appendix out and the white blood cells are attacking something, and then you have to have your appendix out.
We're gonna have to cover that in a whole other episode. Anyway,
that's all I know.
Well, I'll fill you in. Blood is made up of 4 main components. You got your red blood cells and your white blood cells, plasma, and platelets.
Oh, right, because you can donate all that stuff.
Totally.
Got it.
So within those 4 components, you have a lot of clotting factors and other proteins. You have all the good stuff that travels around in your blood, like sugars and fats and proteins. Your blood is really your transport system within your whole body, right?
Yep.
So it's all these passageways that get not just nutrients and, chemicals and hormones from one part of your body to another. It also carries oxygen, right? So all those really important things. So blood's sort of your, main life fluid.
Yes, they talk about that in my meditation videos.
There you go.
Yes.
So when your main life fluid is interrupted by...
I don't think I like the word fluid.
Well, you don't like a lot of words, but we're going to skip right over that. When you get cut or some sort of external injury opens your body to the outside environment where it's not supposed to be, your body, your blood, initiates what's called a clotting cascade. So this was one of my favorite parts when I learned about blood, because the clotting cascade is just, it's a remarkable way that your body decides to fix itself, and it has all these channels that just get triggered and say, this has been activated, activate this. This has been activated, activate this. And it goes all the way down, just like a cascading waterfall of different components that already exist. They're ready to go, but they just need to be clipped in one way or added onto to become what's called insoluble. So they float around in your blood just like the liquid that it is. And then when the clotting cascade gets activated, it says, hey, we need to make a clot. We have an opening in the system. We need to make sure not too much of this gets out, since it's so important. And it goes through this clotting cascade, and it takes soluble proteins in your body and turns them insoluble. So it turns them into a solid that then can stick to the wall and start to form this web of stuff that forms a clot.
I feel like there's some sort of joke with being a robot, but I can't figure out what I want to say.
Good contribution. So there's an internal, intrinsic, I think is actually what it's called, intrinsic pathway. And there's an extrinsic pathway. The extrinsic one is more of like the tissue damage, and then it starts to proceed down, factor 8.
Now, when you get a bruise.
Factor 9. When you get a bruise, yeah.
Yeah, what would that be considered under?
So it's technically an extrinsic pathway because there's some tissue damage. And a bruise is just leaking blood underneath the skin. So even though the skin didn't break, you're still bleeding underneath it. Those blood vessels or capillaries, usually capillaries in this case for a bruise, which are the tiny, tiny, tiny blood vessels.
Yep.
Those are damaged and they just seep out a few, blood components before that clot is made internally. Mm-hmm. So the intrinsic pathway is when something similar to a bruise happens. So you have some...
Give me an example.
Small scrape or cut that happens on the inside of your blood vessels without actually breaking through the skin or the blood vessel itself.
I'm trying to think of an injury that I've had that could be that.
No, you don't know that it's happening.
Oh.
Yeah.
So why does it happen?
Just your body has parts that will fail and heal all the time. That's why clotting is so important.
My body doesn't fail.
No? Okay. I didn't mean like fail, like not do well. I meant like not function properly.
I don't function properly all the time. So, okay, I get it. That makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. So, in that case, that's the intrinsic pathway. It identifies when your body needs to create a clot so that it can patch a minor issue with the blood vessel lining, fix that, and then dissolve the clot, which also is a very important part of this whole process, is not just making the clot, but dissolving them. Because if you've ever had, or heard of, not had, I know you haven't had, a heart attack or a stroke.
I was just going to ask. Yeah, blood clots. with that. That's that.
Yep, those are them. So blood clots that don't dissolve can be thrown from the blood vessel where they've been formed, and by thrown, it's a general
I
term.
have an irrational fear.
What is your irrational fear?
So one time, I feel like someone told me this as a story, and I don't know if they were trying to tell me as like a joke or what, but it stuck with me, and it will always stick with me, and now whenever I get a massage, I always think of it. Someone once said that if I had a massage in my calf muscle, and there was a clot in my calf, and it was massaged, it would cause a heart attack. Is that like a thing?
So clots typically form when your body is like sentient for a long time. So if you
explain that word.
Well, so like they tell you, if you go on really long flights to get up every once in a while and move your legs, you can form clots because your legs have been immobile for such a long period of time.
Got it.
But during a massage, not likely.
What if you had a clot though, and you didn't know it?
So a normal, healthy person, someone who's not elderly per se, is going to be able to dissolve clots as normal as.
So why would this person tell me this? I've literally had a fear of this my entire life, that someone's going to massage my calf and I'm going to die.
It hasn't stopped you yet, so I think you'll be fine.
I know. I do get a massage every month. Okay. But I am very cautious when they massage my calves.
I don't know what that's supposed to mean.
I just tell them to hurry up.
Oh, okay. Do it quickly so that
I don't die.
If I die, it'll happen fast.
Yep.
Okay. Good caution you got there.
But now that I know, they can just stay there all day. Massage those calves.
Perfect. All right. So does that help explain a little bit more about the clotting cascade?
Yes. Now I'm not afraid to die.
Fantastic. No fear of death.
No fear of death from massage.
How much do you know about like the structure of the red blood cell itself? Because this is
it's a circle. Cool. It looks like a lifesaver.
It does look like a lifesaver.
That's all I remember.
That's awesome.
Without a hole in it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
more of like a Werther's hard candy.
I think that's a much more accurate description.
The caramel ones, I do like those. I could go for those.
Yeah, those are pretty phenomenal.
I'm gonna go out and get some.
They're kind of like old people candy,
I don't
but
care.
Everybody loves them.
Yeah. They always got them at the bottom of their purse.
Yeah.
With some lint. Might taste like a coin.
Gotta have both.
It's fine.
Hi,
Grandma.
The red blood cell, the structure of the red blood cell is typically, in your textbook, described as like a lifesaver or a donut shape.
Ooh, donuts. Another thing I can't eat.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. They're pretty awesome. They're, like you said, like a lifesaver shape, like the Werther's candy, where it's not, there's no hole in the middle, but it has that depressed inner center on both sides.
Oh, see, I didn't know that.
Oh yes, on both sides it's got that concave.
I guess I probably should have known that, because they wouldn't all be photographed
one way. Right.
They're not all facing up.
So another thing about red blood cells is they don't have a nucleus. They're different than many of your other cells.
That's the brain part of the cell.
All right.
Here we go.
That these are specialized cells, and their specialized function as a red blood cell is...
I'm on the spot. I don't know what you're talking about.
To carry oxygen and carbon dioxide to the cells and back to the lungs.
So photosynthesis for the body.
Sort of. We'll cover photosynthesis another time.
Sorry, I just did that in class with kids, so
plants.
It's on my mind. I do like plants.
I know you do. So with red blood cells, the most important part of the red blood cell is what it actually carries. It carries hemoglobin. So hemoglobin is a protein. It's got 4 compartments to it. It's got 2 alpha structures and 2 beta structures. And in the middle is an iron ion. So it's a
positive or negative?
All ions are positive.
Good to know.
So that charged iron ion is what has the attachment points for oxygen. So oxygen binds to that iron ion in the hemoglobin.
Say that 5 times fast.
I'm trying not to mess it up. binds to that ion, and it travels from your lungs to your cells and is able to release that because the carbon dioxide replaces it. So the affinity for in your cells, there's a concentration gradient, meaning that your cells will have more carbon dioxide and less oxygen, and the red blood cell will have more oxygen and less carbon dioxide. So they'll naturally exchange because all things want to go towards equilibrium.
The equal point.
The equal point. So it'll give off its oxygen and take on carbon dioxide. It'll take that carbon dioxide and transfer it, travel back up to the heart and the lungs. And in the lungs, in your alveoli, which are your little air sacs in the lungs, you'll get down to very similar as your cells. You'll get down to capillary beds, which are so tiny that only one red blood cell can fit through them at a time. That's how little.
Now, what happens if your capillaries are too small?
I don't think that's ever been a problem, but I don't know.
Okay.
But great question. Maybe one of our listeners can help out with that.
Okay.
So with the capillary beds in the lungs, same thing will happen. So you'll have a higher concentration of carbon dioxide on the red blood cell and a higher concentration of oxygen inside the lung, inside the alveoli, and they'll naturally diffuse across that barrier and allow for oxygen to be captured onto the hemoglobin and release the carbon dioxide.
So when you work out, what happens? Do things change? Do things stay the same? Does it just work faster?
So it's forced to work faster, but sometimes you have that lactic acid, that painful feeling in your muscles.
All the time.
Right.
I don't like to work out.
Right. So what's happening there is your muscles aren't getting enough oxygen, yet they're still burning glucose and
sugar.
In the absence of oxygen, you go from an aerobic pathway to an anaerobic pathway. Aerobic pathway would burn glucose and give off, let me think now, I haven't done this in a while.
Carbon dioxide? Look on that face.
I think it's carbon dioxide. I'll fact check myself in a second. But then in the absence of oxygen, you'll burn glucose and you'll actually turn it into lactic acid. So when you're working out really hard and your body is trying to take in all that oxygen, transfer it with the carbon dioxide in your lungs, get it to your muscles to use. If it doesn't do that fast enough, you'll start to build up lactic acid, and that's why your muscles hurt.
So when you work out for a long time and you do the same thing and it stops hurting, that's your body's gotten used to it.
Right, so your body's getting better at moving that oxygen. So it's because your heart is better at pumping. You've now exercised your heart. So that's why
so
cardio
maybe
is so
I should
good
just work out consistently because I go and stop and then I hurt and then I stop and then I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's exactly how it works.
All right.
So that essentially covers the exchange of blood gases, carbon dioxide, and oxygen. However, what can displace even oxygen in the best environment is carbon monoxide.
You can die.
Right. So
beep, 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 beep.
Are you being the
yes
the pulse oximeter?
Yep.
Very good. So the problem with carbon monoxide is that it actually will take the place of oxygen, even in the presence where concentration gradient isn't in carbon monoxide's favor. So it binds to...
Give me an example.
So if you're in a garage with the car running...
Oh, you kill yourself that way.
Right, so that's because the exhaust is giving off carbon monoxide. And you're in a closed environment, whereas outside it would, dissipate. There's more oxygen than carbon monoxide. You'd be fine.
Got it.
In a small environment where there's an abundance of carbon monoxide, the problem is that the carbon monoxide, once bound to the red blood cells and the iron, it's really hard to displace. So when you bring someone to the hospital after they've had an exposure to carbon monoxide, CO, they will put, high pressure oxygen on them to help try and knock some of those carbon monoxide molecules off of the iron ion. But it's really hard to, because they bind so tightly. They actually bind like 200 times more strongly than oxygen binds to the iron ion. So you can imagine that's why CO poisoning is so dangerous.
Kills you fast.
It kills you fast, and it's hard to treat.
Got it.
So carbon monoxide monitors are really important to have in the house for that reason.
Beep, beep, beep.
That's what you were being.
That's what I was being.
I got it. Okay. So along the same lines as carbon monoxide poisoning, there's also several, and we can't get into all of them, but a few ones that we talk about, in our high school science educations or, basic college educations, some blood diseases that highlight different points of all of the things that blood does and why blood's so important. Things like hemophilia, like we were talking about with the clotting cascade. Mm-hmm. So hemophilia is a blood disease in that you are missing...
I literally want to sing the song.
Is there a song?
Ophelia.
Oh, Ophelia. I thought there was a song for hemophilia.
Nope, but that, I just am singing it in my head now with that as it instead. So.
Ophelia.
Yeah, but say it with the...
Hemophilia.
There it is.
That's pretty cool.
That's exactly what's going on in my head right now.
That's probably all that's going on in there right now. You don't know anything about hemophilia, do you?
I do not.
Okay. So hemophilia is the blood disease where you're actually missing. You cannot make one of the clotting factors in that clotting cascade. So, as we talked about...
Is it like a defect?
It is. It's actually a genetic disease. In that it's a sex-linked, meaning that it sits on one of your X or Y chromosomes, depending on if you're male or female. Actually, it's an X-linked specifically, so it only sits on the X chromosome. Yep. Which you can get from either your father or your mother. Your mother can only give you X's. Your dad will give you either an X or a Y. That depends on whether you're male or female.
Now different songs in my head.
But
X's and O's, if anyone wanted to know.
Okay. So, being an X-linked characteristic or disease, hemophilia will only occur in individuals, and it's more present in males, because being recessive, if you have one good trait, one good gene on your X chromosome from, say, your one good one from your mom, mm-hmm. and you get the bad one from your dad, meaning the one that has hemophilia, your mother's good X chromosome will be more dominant, and you won't express hemophilia as a disease. So you won't express that disorder because you have one good chromosome that's allowing for production of the factor. I believe it's factor 8 in the clotting cascade. However, this happens a lot with males where the disease is expressed because you only have one X to present. So if you have the X with the hemophilia trait on it, it will be expressed. You have no other X to
make up for it.
Exactly.
Got it.
So hemophilia, you're missing one of the clotting factors in the clotting cascade, means you cannot make clots. So you can imagine how dangerous this is. I mean, how many kids,
fall?
Yeah, bumps and bruises and scrapes and cuts and all that, as you're growing up. So we learned about this actually because as one of the diseases that we learned about when we learned about sex-linked traits, because this was very popular back in royal bloodlines when royalty used to marry and breed within their
date
own
each other
groups. Yeah, so they wouldn't
I was going to say that, and then I thought I'd be rude, but apparently that's where you were going. So
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So a little bit
just
of
like
incest.
in Kansas. Kentucky?
That's not nice. That's not how we feel about any of our listeners.
I love all of you. Even my brothers and sisters.
Okay, so when royal bloodlines would marry within their own families and make babies.
They just think that they look beautiful and they're very narcissistic. I get it. Not really.
Okay. Quite the sympathy you have for them.
I try.
That the trait would be passed on and expressed at a higher rate. So this is actually something that really affected royal bloodlines way back in the day, before we really understood a lot about genes and how genes were inherited and all that good stuff. Another one that we learned about is sickle cell anemia. And that's when, have you heard that before? I see the face. Okay, so that's ringing some bells.
Yes, but I don't know why.
So,
is this like a rare one that only happens in possibly one race more than another?
So this is actually, sickle cell anemia is more present in African American, African descent.
Males only?
Nope, not specific to male or female. And I think Middle Eastern descent as well has a higher risk of this. I'm going to do a little shout out to a book.
They're going to shout out to one of our friends.
No. This is Teaching Sara Science. I'm obviously going to be shouting out to a book. But something that we actually read before our AP biology class. And it was why diseases still exist in present day. And it gave a little bit of history on, I believe it was like 10 or 12 different diseases. And it actually talked about potentially giving a reason for why certain diseases still exist today, like sickle cell anemia. So the explanation was that there were, in those regions, so in Africa, in like the Middle East, there's a high level of malaria.
Mosquitoes.
In mosquitoes, yep. And the sickle cell anemia actually prevented some of the malaria from being expressed or allowing the humans to be good hosts if they had sickle cell anemia. So people actually lived long enough to reproduce and have kids and things like that before sickle cell anemia killed them, whereas malaria would have killed them sooner. So it's actually, it's interesting that you could have one disease actually fight out and quote unquote beat another just because it let you live long enough to pass on those traits.
Fascinating.
Isn't that interesting? So, sickle cell anemia is a disease where the red blood cells that we were talking about, rather than looking like that Werther's candy,
yes,
they actually fold.
Look like a candy cane?
Not quite. You know what a sickle looks like?
Is it a plant?
No.
Then no.
It's a like a
spike,
C-shaped tool,
hook,
cutting tool, like the thing.
Do you cut hay?
Yes.
Hay. Got it.
Okay. So that's a sickle. So it actually looks like a curved, compressed shape, and that's
do they still use those?
It's a great question. Sickle shape doesn't fit through your blood vessels very well.
So the cell becomes like curved.
Yeah. Compressed.
Deflated?
Sort of.
Okay.
That's a good way to put it.
Like a flat football? That's a curved.
Maybe. We can go with that.
Just trying to get an image.
Yeah. It's a good description. I think that'll work.
Okay. So it can't go through what?
Can't go through your blood vessels very well.
Okay.
Especially your capillaries. And just like...
Because only one can go through those.
Yes. Some. When they get small enough. The capillaries.
Yep.
But just like spoons with that shape, how they can stack on top of each other, these sickle cells can do the same thing.
Well, aren't they organized?
Unfortunately, organization tends to be more like a clot, and that's really problematic.
Don't get your calf muscles massaged.
Back to your
irrational fear.
Back to your irrational fear. So sickle cells, while they don't carry oxygen very well, they can form clots more easily, and they have a shorter lifespan. They can cause a lot of problems for people who have that disease. That's why.
Can you get a blood transfusion if you have it, or is this kind of like a sorry?
No, I think that's actually one of the treatments for sickle cell anemia is that you get transfusions where the good blood can help sort of provide oxygen to the body and helps make up for some of those sickle cells. But just like most anemias, it's the main issue involved is that it doesn't carry oxygen well. So you're
that would make sense since it's deflated.
Yeah. Exactly. And then another disease that actually the same book that I was talking about.
What is that book?
That book is Survival of the Sickest, and it's by Dr. Sharon Molem and Jonathan Prince. So that was the book that we read going into AP Bio, and it talked about sickle cell anemia. And again, it's pretty descriptive based on the title of the book, Survival of the Sickest, where it's not necessarily what won't kill you, it's what
will make you stronger. It's like the song.
Okay.
It's a lot of song references.
What allows you to reproduce and what wouldn't. So the malaria in this case would kill you before you might be able to pass on your genes.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you had sickle cell anemia, it might, not guaranteed, but it might allow you to live long enough.
Would if you had sickle cell
mm-hmm.
and then you mated
mm-hmm.
and then you had a baby,
mm-hmm.
is it guaranteed that they'll have it?
No, I believe sickle cell, like hemophilia, is a recessive type of inherited disorder. It is inherited, so it's based on your genes, but in this case, it's not linked on the sex chromosomes. It's within the other chromosomes.
Just making sure. So my question is, if someone has sickle cell and they are having a baby, is that baby now gonna have it? Well, I mean, I just figured if it's something that can be I want to say transplanted. Transferred?
Yeah.
To their partner, aka baby, fetus,
not
aka child, human.
Yes, not partner. Right? So
we
it
can't...
does not go across. It only goes down in terms of the genealogical line.
Okay.
So you can only give it to your
child.
You cannot give it to your partner.
Got it.
But why essentially have kids if you could give a disease to your kid?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you're asking?
If they know, if they're aware.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I know that things happen and you
right.
don't know. And
so in this case, or in, I think before we really knew about where sickle cell anemia came from, like this book was describing, it may, in some instances, actually help prevent some other diseases. So that's essentially why it exists today, we think.
To fight off other diseases.
Right, like why didn't it kill everybody a long time ago?
Because malaria.
Right. Similar to hemochromatosis. So hemochromatosis is a long, really fun word to say. Go ahead, say it.
Nope. Can we eat it again?
Hemochromatosis.
Hemochromatosis.
Very good. And it's the excess of...
Hemochromatosis.
There you go.
Hemochromatosis? Nope.
Oh, you lost it?
I did.
Okay.
It's like document.
You have a hard time with that one.
Documentary.
Documentary. There you go.
There it is.
So what hemochromatosis is an excess of iron in the blood.
If you eat too much spinach.
No, that's fine.
Kale.
Perfect.
Broccoli.
Never gonna hurt.
Cool.
Love your dark
Plants.
leafy greens.
Yes.
All good stuff. It's when your body overproduces and commits that iron to your blood that actually can make essentially your joints rust. So oxidation of iron will create rust. It essentially can do that to your joints if you have hemochromatosis.
So is it different from arthritis?
It is different. It's very different.
Feel the same?
I don't know what it feels like.
And how do you get it?
So that's also a genetic passed down through your genes. Something we also learned in Survival of the Sickest, because hemochromatosis is thought to have persisted for this long because it can cause enlarged hearts, heavy enlarged
Just
hearts.
love more.
Well, it's unfortunately not how it works, and it's very bad for you. But it has been thought that the excess of iron in the blood prevented, or at least deterred in some way, the Black Plague from being picked up. So people actually survived, potentially, they think. People survived the plague because they had hemochromatosis.
The pirates brought over?
What?
The Black Plague? Isn't that in that movie?
The Pirates of the Caribbean?
Yeah.
No.
Oh.
Not even a little bit.
Black Spot?
Yeah, Black Spot.
Not the same thing?
Not the same thing.
Okay.
Maybe we'll talk about plague sometime.
Okay.
So we're just gonna end it there. I think that's a great place to stop. Now we have our final questions quiz.
Oh no.
Are you ready?
This is my least favorite part of school.
Yep. So we gotta test you and make sure you actually paid attention this whole time.
There were times where I was not.
That's fair.
Okay.
Let's see how you did. What are the possible blood type combinations?
A, B, B, O.
And
positives and negatives.
Awesome.
There's 8 or 4 in your mind.
Right. That's
bam.
That's one. Nice job.
Check. 10%.
Why is it important to give compatible blood transfusions?
So they don't kill each other.
Why?
Because they come in with their swords.
We'll accept that. Partial credit. Yeah, so like we just talked about, if you're receiving blood from someone who is not your same blood type, your body has natural defenses against that foreign material.
Defense of the dark arts.
Back to movies. So, it's not going to work out. Now, something we didn't cover.
You can't quiz me on something we didn't cover. That's cheating.
This is our critical thinking question.
Oh, Lord.
Who is the universal donor?
We did cover that. You said, oh.
Yeah.
Mom.
Is that how you remember?
All the moms.
Not everybody's mom.
No. Our mom.
So, O, and then positive or negative?
Oh, crap. I'm going to go with positive because it seems happier.
Negative.
Crap.
So O negative is the universal donor.
That doesn't sound helpful.
Negative being they lack the antigen that says you can recognize me as foreign material.
Makes more sense.
Right. Who's the universal recipient? This is a critical thinking question.
I'm going to go with AB only because I feel like I'm B and you're A and we aren't, so put them together and maybe we are.
Okay. It's a weird reasoning, but the right answer.
Look at that.
Now, positive or negative?
Negative.
Recipient.
Positive.
So close.
The last one was negative. It's overthinking is my problem.
Yes. Thinking too much is
lots
definitely
of thinking
where you go wrong.
is happening in my head right now.
Okay. So those are all the questions I had.
What? I got 100?
That's generous, but we'll give it to you. Nice job.
Okay.
Thank you all for listening. And you can reach out with comments, questions, feedback, and any topics that you want us to cover.
I think the next one is going to be sex ed.
Get ready.
Because you didn't learn it right in school.
Yeah, we have a lot to tell you.
And I have a lot to learn. But do I?
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.